messenger, Yah stepping out of Beulah. From Babylon to Zion, my chains are looser in my mind, but out here the jakes will shoot ya. The judges judge for hire, the juries are straight liars. Just to see Israel fried up, they got our phones tapped and wired up. The police got you stuck, no one desires us. This law requires us to buy this man's trust, pay to get salvation. Who you playing? But I pulled your card, I seen your stars, they false lights. My spirit spit lyrics so cold, your frostbite. And that's the attitude from your murderous plight, from your rapist every night. And young boys shot down in the street in they mama's sight. Your overseers call this the good life, like the hood's right. Rep Zion, that's right. Yah's way, that's life. Ships of Tarshish, the glory of Lebanon will offload to Yah's land. That's what we stepping on. The next plane won't miss the Pentagon. The bees is dying, Florida is drying. Look like death coming to Babylon. The nation about to be born. A pure language giving the call on the name of Yah. All people will serve the sun, the black supremacist. No hippie on the stick, looking like Dennis the Menace. The demon is finished. When the wicked fall, the meek increase. Israel is free. Rejoice in the death of the beast. The resurrection of Yah's people. All your children will be righteous, walking in Yah's likeness, mirth and happiness. All glory in the land that Yah is blessed. See the truth manifest in Yah's elect.
And believe it or not, a few weeks earlier we embarked on the subject, did the Christ of the New Testament sin? Did he sin? And if so, what sins did he commit? How often have you heard that there is none perfect but one, and that is Christ? And how often have you heard that we have all fallen short of the glory of Elohim, except Christ? Well, I'm here to inform you today that both of those statements are totally false. It is possible that men walk perfectly before the Almighty. You have had perfect men in the past, and there can be perfect men and women in the future, if you learn the biblical definition of what perfect means and how does one become perfect. We're going to deal with that today. I want everybody to be able to reach for the stars. So if they fall, they still might land on the moon. But we want to set high goals for ourselves in life, with our family, with our community, and with the Most High. So we want to always reach for the stars. We want to aim for where man say we cannot go. And if the Christian community and others say that we can't be perfect, we're going to see if that is true or if that is a lie. First of all, according to the book of Job, the first chapter. We turn there. According to the book of Job, the first chapter, would you begin, allow everybody to get to the first chapter, and then we're going to read a few things together. The book of Job, first chapter, the first verse. Would you start reading, please?
There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect.
Now, we've heard that nobody was perfect. But here the Creator said there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and he said that man was perfect. Continue.
And upright.
And he was upright.
And one that feared Elohim.
He feared Elohim.
And eschewed evil.
And he hated evil. He hated evil. And a lot of people say, well, I don't hate nothing. Well, if you don't hate, that means you don't love. It's impossible to claim that you love someone when you don't have hate. Matter of fact, you only know that you love when you can feel the presence of hate. Like me saying, I love this young man, but at the same time, I love people also that abuse children. I love people that kill and murder children. How can I love them and them as well? That's how I know I love children, because I hate people that abuse children. I hate people that rape children. I hate people that take advantage of children. And that's how I know that I love children, because I feel this disdain in my heart for those that do this ill will to others. That's how you know that you do love. How can you love your wife, but you don't mind seeing her naked? You don't mind seeing her suffer. You don't mind seeing her without. You wouldn't mind seeing another man abuse her, but you love her. That's how you know you do love your wife, because you would hate to see your wife abused. You would hate to see someone take advantage of someone that you love. It's only through hate that we know love. If it was not for hate, we would never know that we do love. We only know perfection because we have seen imperfection. If we have never seen imperfection, we would never know what perfection could be. You would never know what good is if evil was not present. And that's how we know what good is, because we've been able to determine what's bad and what's evil. Likewise, it said that this man Job, he hated evil. So it's let me know now that he, by him hating evil, that he was a man that loved righteousness. The scriptures, if we turn The Psalms 97, and hold that page. Psalms 97. The 10th verse.
Ye that love Yah, hate evil.
It says, ye that love Yah, hate evil. We're told to hate evil. How else can we know that we love Yah? If you don't hate discrimination, you don't hate racism, you don't hate nobody exploiting your people, degrading your people, misusing your people, murdering your people. If you don't hate this, then you don't really love your people. You just love yourself. Because you can't love your people and love and don't mind seeing these atrocities committed against those. So that's how we get to bearing. That's how we know our perspective, by our feelings. Going back to the book of Job. It said this man was perfect, upright, one that feared Elohim, and eschewed evil. He eschewed evil. That's how we know that he loved righteousness, because he, in fact, hated evil, as we were all told to do. Who can name me another perfect man in the Bible? And show me where that man was perfect. We named Job. Is there someone else that was perfect? Nobody? We turn to the book of Genesis, the 17th chapter, the very first book in the Bible. Going into Genesis 17 and 1.
And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, Yah appeared to Abram.
In other words, he appeared to him. Now, according to the New Testament, nobody can see the Most High. And, of course, that's what the devil wants you to believe. He wants you to believe that the Almighty is just a spirit. And if you believe the Almighty is just a spirit, then consequently, you'll start believing that the devil is just a spirit. But that's how you know that we have physical things, because there's spiritual things. If there's a physical world, there must be a spiritual world existing. But right here, he said this man Abram was what? The Almighty told him to walk before him and be thou perfect. Did the Almighty tell him to be perfect if he was not capable of being perfect? And notice what he told him after he said, walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make a covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. Now, undoubtedly, Abram was perfect, because the Almighty did make that covenant with him and became somebody special to him. We know that's so because the 18th chapter. I'm sorry, we're in the 17th chapter. We read a little further. The 3rd verse. The 2nd verse, read that.
And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham.
Abraham, all right. So the Almighty did make this covenant with him, because he did walk before him, and he was perfect. Now, who else was perfect that you can think of? Yes, ma'am, you can show and prove.
No,
I want you to not only say he was perfect, I want you all in our listening audience to be able to prove it. Anybody can say, well, nobody's perfect, or somebody was perfect, but we want to be able to prove it. Yes, ma'am.
Noah.
Noah was perfect? Are you sure? And how you know that Noah was a perfect man?
Genesis 6th chapter and the 9th verse.
Genesis the 6th chapter, the 9th verse. Would you read that, please?
These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generation.
He was a just man and perfect in his generation. Yes, he was a just man and he was very perfect. He was very good. Now, who else can name a perfect man? Yes, sir, Ellen?
1 Kings 15 and 14.
1 Kings 15 and 14. First Kings, 15th chapter, the 14th verse.
But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, Asa's heart was perfect with Yah all his days.
In other words, King Asa, it said his heart was perfect with Yah all of his days. All his days, his heart was perfect with Yah. Continue. And the other perfect man that anyone wants to bring forth. Any other perfect man is someone I can think of. I think if you look at the 11th chapter, you'll see another perfect man in that same Kings, 11th chapter. Anyone spotted him yet? Well, according to 1 Kings, the 11th chapter, the 4th verse. Would you read the 11th chapter, the 4th verse?
For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other deities, and his heart was not perfect with Yah his Elohim, as the heart of David his father.
In other words, to let you know that David's heart was perfect. And Solomon, even though he was a wise man, very honorable man, that his heart was not perfect with Yah, as was David, his father. Now, David had a perfect heart. He was a perfect man. Now, did that mean that David never sinned? It don't mean that at all. David had sinned. Once David said that the sins are more than a hairs in my head. But David repented. David turned from his sins. As all of us would have to do one day if we want to strive to be perfect. We have to turn from our sins. Let us look and see what is required for a person to turn from his sins, be forgiven of all their sins, and be righteous before Yah. Let us turn to the book of Ezekiel, the 18th chapter. Ezekiel, the 18th chapter. I want you to start reading at the 20th verse, please.
The soul that sinneth, it shall die.
It didn't say the soul that sinned and turned to Christ or turned from Christ would die. It said the soul that sinneth, it shall die. Now, for our Christian community that is listening, let us define what sin is. The Holy Scriptures define sin as an offense that requires a sacrifice. Any offense is a sin. That is the definition of sin according to the Holy Scriptures, or the so-called Old Testament. Now, it's very important for us today to understand the definition of sin in the New Testament as well. So therefore, I would like you to turn to 1 John. Go to the book of 1 John, the 3rd chapter. And let us define sin from the perspective of the New Testament. Now, according to 1 John, the 3rd chapter, their definition of sin is recorded in the 4th verse. It says,
whosoever committed sin transgresses also the law.
In other words, I want the ministers and the audience to realize how they are deceiving the people in the various churches. You're teaching the people that they are not under the law. They don't have to worry about keeping the Sabbath day. They don't have to worry about refraining from eating pork. You don't have to worry about keeping the dietary laws and all of the holy days. You're teaching our people that those laws are done away with. You're teaching them that they have been nailed to the cross. But your own book is testifying against you. It says, whosoever commits sin transgress also the law. In other words, it's impossible to sin except by breaking the law. And it goes further for saying, for sin is the transgression of the law. So you don't teach the people one day that you don't sin, that you shouldn't sin, and then in the next breath you teach them that the law was done away with. Well, if the law was done away with, it is totally impossible to sin. How can you sin if there is no law? But sin is the transgression of the law. And you're teaching people that sin, law is done away with, but every day you want to rob the people, you tell them to bring the tithes, that you must collect tithes. Well, that's part of the law. And if the law is done away with, then certainly tithes are done away with, when tithes are just one of the statutes of the law. Further, the New Testament defines sin in the 5th chapter of 1 John is another definition for sin, which covers everything. Because all sin is not just a transgression of the law. All unrighteousness is sin, according to the 5th chapter, the 17th verse. It says all unrighteousness is sin, and that is absolutely so. Anything that is not right is an offense to the Almighty. And anything that is an offense to the Creator is sin. So once we have established what sin is, and we know clearly it's impossible to sin if you're not under the law. If the law is done away with, then there is no sin. If the law is done away with, then we can commit adultery. If the law is done away with, we can kill. If the law is done away with, we can steal. If the law is done away with, I don't have to honor my mother and father. But we do these things because this is part of the Almighty's law. And look how the world has done the Creator. That's reading years ago, the hippies had a saying out that God is dead. They felt he was dead because all the churches were teaching that the law is dead. And what is the law? We know what sin is. Sin is a transgression of the law. Now what is the law? The law is the words of the Most High. And if the law is done away with, that implies that the Almighty is done away with. If the law is dead, then Yahweh is dead. That's exactly what it means. So no wonder they had a big thing going, God is dead. You can do anything you want to. All you have to do is believe in JC. Believe he has died for your sins and you'll be saved. How is that going to help the sick child molester? Because he believes in JC. And believes that JC died for his sin, but he's still molesting children. He's still raping little children. How did that aid him? And the reality is, it didn't. So we wanted to define what the law is, and I also wanted to define sin. Now we reach the most important chapter in our discussion is, since I just disclosed to you that there were various perfect men in the Bible, there was Noah, there was Job, there was King David, King Asa, just to name a few, we have to understand, was Christ perfect? Since we have always heard that there is none perfect but one, and that is Christ. Now we must determine if Christ is perfect. And to be perfect, he has to be able to walk with the Almighty, and he had to be able to keep the Father's commandments. And the reality is, no, he was not perfect. There were over 12 different sins that I noticed in the scriptures that Christ committed. That were sins. Matter of fact, I'm writing a book on this now because there's no book been written about has Christ sinned. We have all concluded and believed that it was impossible for him to sin. And I quickly noticed 12 different sins. But before I am able to show you the sins, I have to bring to your understanding what sin is. Sin, in reality, is any unrighteousness. When something is not right. And the only one that can define when something is not right or when something is out of order is the Creator himself. Because you offend him when you're not right. And that's what sin is, an offense. We know what sin is by knowing the commandments. If a man does not know the commandments, he doesn't even know if he's sinning or not. For instance, if a man go to the store and buy an octopus and eat it, he buy some crab legs for a child. Then he orders his wife a bowl of shrimp. Did he sin? Yes, but if you didn't know the law, you would not know that. What if he bought a gorilla to eat? He bought some rat soup to eat. Did he sin? The reality is that he did. Why? Because there are laws governing what you should eat and what you should not eat. We have laws governing. Why? Why did the Almighty give us laws on what we should eat? Why would he restrict our lives, mess up our lives, with giving us bothersome things about what you should eat and what you should not eat? Here's why the Almighty gave us a dietary law in the first place. If we turn our book to the book of Leviticus, the 20th chapter, we will see why the Almighty thought it necessary to give us a dietary law to tell us what we should eat and what we should not eat. In the book of Leviticus, the 20th chapter, I would like you to start reading somewhere around the 26th verse. Would you read that, please?
And ye shall be holy unto me.
Notice the Almighty's talking to the children of Israel, and notice what he tells the children of Israel. Ye shall be holy unto me. Now, what does the word holy mean? The scriptures say wisdom is a principal thing, therefore get wisdom, but with all you're getting, get understanding. Holy means to be separate. Holy means to be clean. And you can't be separate and clean if you're eating everything. The Almighty said, ye should be holy unto me. Continue.
For I, Yah, am holy.
Because I'm holy. And if you want to walk with me, you have to be holy. For the scriptures in Amos, the 3rd chapter, the 2nd verse reads, how can two walk together except they be agreed? How can a woman walk with a man if they're not agreed? Because they're not agreed, that means she's going this way and he's going that way. They're not even aiming for the same things in life. They're divided. Their thoughts are divided. Their aspirations are divided. Their dreams are divided. Their visions is divided. And the scriptures say where there is no vision, the people perish. And if a man is walking with one vision, and his wife has a different agenda or a different vision altogether, they can't walk together. How can two walk together except they be agreed? And how can we walk with Yahweh, and he's holy, but we remain unholy? He's clean, but we remain unclean. He's righteous, but we remain evil and refuse to change. How can we walk with him? If we want to walk with our Creator, we have to do what he says to do. Continue.
And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, Yah, am holy.
Read that verse again.
And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, Yah, am holy.
He wants us to be holy because he's holy. That makes good sense. Continue.
And have severed you from other people,
And I have separated you from other people.
that ye shall be mine.
Yes, if the other people's culture allows them to eat rats and bats and crawfish and snails and jellyfish and shark, let them eat it. If their culture allows them to eat pig and chitlins and hog guts, let them eat it. If that's what they want to do, if this is their culture, if this is their heritage, if this is the ways of their fathers, if this is the way they want to walk in those ways. But we have elected to walk with the Most High. And by walking with the Most High, we allow him to be our teacher. We allow him to be our guide. We allow him to call the shots. We want to be holy? Let's see what he says requires to be holy. Continue.
And a man also, or a woman that have a familiar spirit, or that is a wizard.
No, he went down too far. You must have skipped over something. Let's get back to the book of Leviticus, the 20th chapter. This 20th chapter of Leviticus. It says, we didn't go up enough. I'm going to start at the 24th verse. Notice what the Creator tells Israel. But I have said unto you, ye shall inherit their land. I will give it unto you to possess it. It is a land that floweth with milk and honey. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, which have separated you from other people. I wanted you to be different. I wanted you to belong to me. I wanted you to be a peculiar treasure unto myself. So therefore, I've separated you from the other people. The 25th verse. Ye shall therefore put difference between clean beasts and unclean. So he told us to find out from him what's clean beast and what's an unclean beast. And I want you to put a difference between clean beasts and unclean. And between clean fowls and unclean. And ye shall not make your souls abominable by beast, or by fowl, or by any manner of living thing that creepeth on the ground, which I have separated from you as unclean. In other words, if I told you it's unclean, then separate yourself from it. Ye shall be holy unto me, for I, Yah, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye shall be mine. So if we want to belong to the Almighty, we got to walk away from the culture, from the people, from the habits, as the Almighty told Abraham to leave Mesopotamia. Abraham's mother and father and grandmama and aunt and uncles and all of his kin folks was in Mesopotamia. But the Almighty seen something in Abram that he didn't see in other people. And he told Abram, I want you to leave your father's house and come with me, and I'm going to make of thee a great nation. But just put your trust in me. And when you follow me, I want you to separate yourself from things that I call evil. So the things that they were doing in your culture, you separate yourself from them. The habits, the culture, the holy days, the holidays, the foods, I'm going to make a new person out of you. That's why the Almighty gave us a dietary law, because he wanted us to be like him. Now, what does this mean to the strangers that's listening? Everybody in our listening audience are not Israelites. But if I was walking down the street and I happened to hear God talk to his own son and tell his son, I want you to be clean, and I want you to be healthy, and I want you to be strong, and I want you to be holy like me, and I want you to stop eating these foods because they will make you unholy and unclean, do you know what I would do? Whether I was an Israelite or not, when I hear God talk to his son, I'm going to take heed. I'm going to say, well, if I want to be with the Almighty, and this is going to make his son holy, maybe it will make me holy. If it will make his son clean, maybe it will make me clean. If this would bring his son closer to him, maybe this will bring me closer to him. That's what I would say. That's my rationale. Now, I might be wrong, but that's just the way I would figure things out. If I was a stranger and walked by and heard the Almighty talking to his son, I was going to do and obey the laws that he gave to his son. I wouldn't have the attitude that these preachers and ministers have and say, well, they were given that law because they're Jews. We're not the Jews. So we don't have to eat like that. We don't have to avoid pig and dogs and hogs and rats and cats. We can eat anything we want to. We are not no Israelites. That's for those people. Well, who are those people? Those people that he spoke of is the people that the Almighty said is the apple of his eye. And who would not like to be like the apple of the Almighty's eye? In my opinion, other than a so-and-so. Now let's understand why the Almighty gave us a dietary law. He gave us laws, period, because he wanted us to be holy like he was holy. Now, if Christ was the Son of the Most High, as we have been taught, and Christ was the divine, spiritual Son of the Almighty, as we have been taught, then he would have been in harmony with the Almighty. And he would not have been in adversity with the Almighty. He would have been walking with the Creator and not walking against the Creator, as I will soon show you that he did. But I wanted us to get a few definitions understood. What is a law? What is sin? And why the Almighty wanted us to follow his laws in the first place. He wanted us to follow his laws so that we can be holy or be like he is. Further, if you look in the book of Deuteronomy, the 14th chapter. Notice what it says in the second verse. Would you read, please?
For thou art an holy people.
For thou, he's telling Israel, for thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy Elohim. And while Yahweh has chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are on the earth. In other words, the Almighty did not make us to be like Paul was to the Christians. Paul said he was like a human chameleon. A chameleon is a little lizard, and everywhere the lizard goes, he becomes what that environment is. If he walk around something green, he turns green. He walk around something brown, he becomes brown. Well, that's how Paul was in the New Testament. Paul said, I become all things to all men. To the Greek, I become as a Greek. To the Romans, I become as a Roman. That's when you got the old cliche that be as Paul, go to Rome, and be as the Romans. Paul said, when I went amongst the Romans, I became as a Roman. He said, I became all things to all men. To them that were in the law, I became as under the law. As them that were without law, Paul said, I became without law. In other words, when Paul went around the crackheads and the sinners, he became as they were. He wanted, where's the pipe? According to his own omission, this is what he did. The words that I say are not my words, these are the words of Paul. So if there's any indictment made against Paul, he's making it himself, not I. So he became as other people were, but here you read where the Almighty tells Israel that I want you to be a peculiar people unto me above all the nations in the earth. In other words, don't follow everybody else. A lot of our people come to America, we want to be like our slave owners. We see him go to the fancy restaurants and order snails and shells and snakes and everything. We think it's big time. We want a plate full of prawns and legs and little things sticking out everywhere. Some of the food that our people eat now, I get sick just looking at it. Let alone considering eating it. These foods, the Creator said, is an abomination. And notice what the Creator says in Deuteronomy, the 14th chapter, the 8th verse. Read.
And the swine, because it divideth the hoof.
And the swine, because it divides the hoof.
Yet cheweth not the cud.
Notice the swine, the Almighty said it divides the hoof. So it's nothing about the pig's feet that I'm telling you to avoid. Just like clean animals divide the hoof, the swine divides the hoof. Continue.
Yet cheweth not the cud.
He said it cheweth not the cud. Right here he's proven the preachers of Christianity as being big liars. Why did they say? And what do they say about it? The Christian ministers now say we can eat swine. Many of them told me the reason that we couldn't eat swine in the past, eat hogs in the past, because Christ drove a bunch of demons in the holes and sent them over the cliff, and they all died. But since they are dead, we can now eat the whole. Well, that didn't even make good sense, did it? You mean he took all the holes in the world and sent them over the cliff? No. The point is that long before Christ had supposedly been born, the Almighty said, don't eat no swine, because it cheweth not the cud. And let me tell you now, even though old Reb will tell you that the swine is clean to eat, and that Christ has cleansed it, notice that the swine still cheweth not the cud. The hog will eat anything in the world, but you will never catch a hog chewing the cud. So according to the Creator, he just said, what they're teaching in Christianity is wrong. I know one pastor that was a friend of mine. We used to box together years ago, and we both became ministers. And he used to teach people to eat hog, and I would teach him not to. So one day in my business, him and I was having a conversation, and he brought to my attention, he said, now, I tell the people they can eat hog. He said, but I don't eat it. And I looked at him real strange, and I said, well, why don't you eat hog since you teach others that you can eat it? He said, well, I used to eat hog, but the only reason I don't eat it now is because I got high blood pressure. Other than that, I would eat hog. I said, what do you think gave you high blood pressure, brother? What do you think gives you strokes and hypertension? What do you think bring all these diseases into your body? What you eat today will be walking and talking tomorrow. You are a product of what you eat. And mostly all the diseases that we have are a result of us eating the wrong foods or eating incorrectly. That's why we get diseases in the first place. But nevertheless, I just wanted to show you that the Creator said that the hog is still unclean because the hog still cheweth not the cud. Now at this time, before we go on further, let me ask the people in our listening audience, by way of TV and internet, a question that I occasionally ask people to see their spiritual IQ. In other words, to see where you're at intellectually with divine thought, or see your spiritual perceptibility, in other words. Let me ask you a question. If we went, you and I, went to a buffet today, and on the buffet table, they got everything that you can desire, and it's cooked perfectly. And everybody's in line at the buffet. But everybody in line keep going down to the end of the aisle, because at the end of the aisle they have a big kettle. And you and I don't know what's in the kettle, but whatever is in it, the people is loving it because they're going back for 4 and 5 servings. And we can't wait to get to the kettle, but the top chefs come out of the restaurant and he recognized you and I. And he tells us, if I was you, I would eat what's in that kettle. The question that I have, would you then eat it? Would you then go to the kettle and eat what's in the kettle, even though the chef of the kitchen came out and told you that if he was you, he would not eat what's in the kettle? Now, if you're real smart, you would say, no, I wouldn't eat it. And I would say, why? And you would tell me, if you were real smart, well, the chef that cooked it, if he cooked it and told me not to eat it, then he knows something that I don't know, and I got to give him that much respect and not to eat it. That's what you would say if you're smart. Now, if you're an intellectual, spiritual dummy, you would say, well, I would eat it anyway because the other people keep going back and it seems like it's real good. That's what you would say if you was an intellectual, spiritual dummy. But if you were smart, you would say, I would not eat it because the chef told me not to eat it. Now, my question to those people that are smart, would you give a chef of a restaurant more respect than you would the Almighty? The chef of the restaurant could be lying, but the Most High does not lie. He does not lie. The chef of the restaurant could deceive you, but the Most High never deceives us. Now, the Most High, who created everything, told us that he's going to bless us and allow us to eat the good food and the good things of life, and told us not to eat the whole. Well, many of our people will obey the chef of the restaurant, where they would not obey the Most High. In other words, they would show the chef more respect than they would the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that therein is. And my common sense would tell me, if the Almighty created every animal on this earth, and he told us to refrain from eating certain animals, that I would take heed to what he said. Matter of fact, I would take heed to him even quicker than I would the chef that cooked the food. Because the Almighty has the capacity of blessing us where the chef can't. So I would listen to the Most High. Most of our people would listen to the chef, but when it comes time to open the Bible and see with their own eyes where the creator of the universe said, don't eat no swine, they will go out and do exactly what the Almighty said not to do. This is called disobedience. This is called rebelliousness. And the Almighty said rebelliousness to him is as the sin of what? Witchcraft. You might as well be practicing witchcraft as to show rebellion against the Creator. Now let's turn to the book of Matthew and let's get right into the nitty-gritty. I said that Christ broke some of the commandments of the Bible. And you need to ask me where. I want you to hold that 5th chapter, then I'm going to show you some other ways. Because it is said that there are over 300 different commandments in the Bible. In other words, there's over 300 different ways a man can sin. And I'm glad that we have an Elohim that's wise to be able to direct our lives in a manner that he has. He can tell us what kind of material to wear. Because anytime you offend your body, you offend him. And sin is an offense. And he didn't want you to offend him in any way. And anytime you offend your body by eating something that's bad for you, you offended him. Anytime you wear some clothes that don't allow your body to breathe, you offend him. That's when the Almighty told us don't wear any garments that are mingled with linen and wool together, but only wear natural material, all silk, all linen, all wool, all cotton, but don't mingle in them. A lot of people got skin diseases because they buy clothing that does not allow their skin to breathe. And bacteria begins to build up in their feet and body because they don't breathe properly, because they don't dress properly. They want to wear what's fashionable and not what is good for them. And what they do is end up offending their body, and our bodies are the temple of the Most High. And when we offend our bodies, we offend the Most High. When we eat a food that causes us harm, we offend the Most High because we offend our bodies. So we have a spiritual obligation to eat to live, not live to eat. And some of our brothers and sisters think they were made for it. They think they were made just to live to eat rather than to eat to live. You're only supposed to eat the foods the Creator tells you to eat, and only when you're hungry. If you're not hungry, your body's telling you something. It's telling you you don't need food. So don't put it in your system. Because your system is going to have a problem in the digestion and the assimilation and the evacuation of that particular product. You don't need it. So don't use it. He's telling us all these things in His infinite wisdom. But before I begin to show you the sins that Christ of the New Testament committed, I was explaining that there's over 300 different commandments. And we sin anytime we break any of these commandments. And then there are ways that we can sin without breaking the commandments. There's 4 different ways that I found that we can sin even if we don't break one of the commandments, is by sinning in the way that we look at the commandments. For instance, if we turn to the book of Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter. And the phone calls that we have received from around the United States as a result of our program that we're broadcasting around the world has been astronomical. It is commendable the amount of spiritual leaders that have contacted me and told me that we're walking as one and that they are now finished with JC. And they have turned their whole hearts toward Yahweh as a result of our program. So we take this matter very seriously. And I appreciate the perseverance and the tolerance that some of you all show and display where I'm teaching, because oftentimes I'm teaching things that many of you all are very familiar with. Many of you all heard me teach before. But because of the nature of our program, many things that you all know we're going to have to teach over and over to make sure that everybody knows. And this is one of the occasions, because the Almighty said His word shall be magnified. That means the more you read it, the more you understand it. According to the book of Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter, the 32nd verse, it tells us one way we can break His commandments. And that is by doing what? Would you read?
What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it.
He said, what things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add any words to this law, nor diminish any words from this law. So one way we sin is when we have a law, such as the law of adultery, and then we add something to it. We have sinned. Or we take something from that law, we have sinned. Let me show you how Christ broke this particular law. Let's go to the book of Matthew, the 5th chapter. Now that you got the 5th chapter of Matthew, I'm going to go to the book of Leviticus, the 20th chapter. Hold that with your finger. Go to Leviticus, the 20th chapter. Because in the commandments we find one law says, thou shalt not commit adultery. But what is adultery? Does that mean don't marry a woman before she's 22? Does adultery mean to throw an egg up in the air at 1 o'clock at night? What does adultery mean? We have all heard various things, and many of us have jumped to various conclusions. But did we ever look up the definition of adultery or look in the Bible and see if adultery defined itself other than thou shalt not commit adultery? Let's find out what adultery is. According to the book of Leviticus, the 20th chapter, the 10th verse, it says, and the man that committed adultery with another man's wife. So we see it's something that a man got to do with another man's wife. What does it mean? Does it mean he's cooking for another man's wife? Or it means that he talks to another man's wife? Let's see. And the man that committed adultery with another man's wife, even he that committed adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress should surely be put to death. So we find out it's something he does with his wife, another man's wife, or his neighbor's wife. Now let's go a little further. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 22nd chapter, where we find this thing being broke down. Deuteronomy 22. Then it gets into the gist of defining what it is. According to Deuteronomy 22nd chapter, the 22nd verse, it reads,
if a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband.
Notice, if a man be found lying with a woman that is married to a husband,
then they shall both of them die.
Then both of them shall die.
Both the man that lay with the woman.
Both the man that lay with the woman.
And the woman. So shalt thou put away evil from Israel.
So we find out that one way to commit adultery is to lay with a woman that's married to a husband. But there's another way to commit adultery as well. Notice the 23rd verse.
If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband.
That means she's engaged to a husband. She's not married yet, but this damsel is engaged or betrothed to her husband.
And a man find her in the city and lie with her. Then you shall bring them both out unto the gate of that city, and you shall stone them with stones that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So thou shalt put evil away from amongst you.
Notice, and the man, because he humbled his neighbor's wife, so shall I put evil from amongst you. So adultery is when you sleep with another man's wife, or you sleep with another man's fiance, as we say, anytime he's engaged. That is adultery. Adultery is not a man with a single woman, but a man with a married woman or a woman that is engaged. That is adultery. Are there any questions on anything that I've taught today? And if not, hallelujah.
With all of your heart and soul, if you know you fear Yah, then you're walking His ways. Love Yah, serve Yah. With all of your heart and soul, if you know you fear Yah, then you're walking His ways. Love Yah, serve Yah. With all of your heart and soul. There's no other way I wanna walk in a perfect way with the spirit of the fury Yahweh. Israel's a servant and not a homeborn slave. America's been the land of our graves. All of us is confused, manipulated, ridiculed, and abused. Toy with and used, heart is bruised, sold on the ghost and worshiping cartoons. We even shook from a bada boom. Fake noise and fake news, fake results. But Yahweh's a true result and resolution, the true revolt and revolution. When we stand as Yah's army, embracing the conclusion to all men, keeping the word of Yah with all our heart and soul, and no one else has us under their control. If you know you fear Yah, then you're walking His ways. Love Yah, serve Yah, with all of your heart and soul. soul.